What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is Canada and the United States bizarre border.
Interesting. Sounds bizarre.
It literally could be anyone. The only thing I think is quite bizarre, which I know about the US and the UK border, maybe it is. I know what it's about.
Bit?
No, not really. Like, I was thinking the bit where it's between a town and you got like one side of the building is Canadian, one side is America.
Was it like a library?
That was like a library it went through. But I think this video now, and we're going to learn a bit more about it, is the town in Canada, which is American, and then they've got to go through the border to get into Canada to then drive all the way around to go to school in America.
Are you sure that's not Alaska? Oh no.
No, it's not in Alaska, but it's in Canada, and it's like a town which is not that big, but the only way to get to America is going through Canada.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? But after, once you leave them, there's like a border. That's what it might be about. It might be about something else, so we'll see.
Canada and the United States share the longest, straightest, possibly boringest border in the world.
Okay.
But look closer and there's plenty of bizarreness to be found. While these sister nations get along fairly well, they both want to make it really clear whose side of the continent is whose, and they've done this by carving a 20-foot wide space along the border. All 5,500 miles of it.
That can't be real.
It looks real.
On the border. Is that? Let us know in the comments.
It looks real.
Actually, maybe it is, just to define it. Wow.
It was. What else would you do? Instead of putting up like fences, I guess, just to.
Wow, that's quite mad. That is mad.
With the exception of the rare New England town that predates national borders or the odd airport that needed expanding, this space is the no-touching zone between the countries, and they're super serious about keeping it clear. It matters not if the no-touching zone runs through hundreds of miles of virtually uninhabited Alaskan Yukon wilderness, those border trees will not stand. Which might make you think this must be the longest, straightest, deforested place in the world, but it isn't. Deforested, yes, but straight, not at all. Sure, it looks straight on a map, and the treaties establishing the lines say it's straight, but in the real world, the official border is 900 lines that zigzag from the horizontal by as much as several hundred feet. Wow. How did this happen? Well, imagine you're back in North America in the 1800s. The 49th parallel, one of those horizontal lines you see on the globe, has just been set as the national boundary, and it's your job to make it real. You are handed a compass and a ball of string and told to carefully mark off the next 2/3 of a continent. Don't mind that uncharted wilderness in your way, just keep the line straight. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah,
the men who surveyed the land did the best they could and built over 900 monuments. They're in about as straight a line as you could expect a pre-GPS civilization to make, but it's not the kind of spherical planar intersection that would bring a mathematician joy. Nonetheless, these monuments define the border, and the no-touching zone plays connect the dots with them.
Okay.
Oh, and while there are about 900 markers along this section of the border, there are about 8,000 in total that define the shape of the nations. Despite this massive project, Canada and the United States still have disputed territory. There's a series of islands in the Atlantic that the United States claims are part of Maine, and Canada claims are part of New Brunswick.
Okay.
Canada, assuming the islands are hers, built...
So this is just about the whole of the border, which is good because we knew a little bit about that town, so I thought, oh, we might just be going over all ground. Yeah, it's quite interesting, actually.
It is interesting. I can't believe it, actually.
Just the fact that through the trees, that's it. I never knew.
No,
it actually makes sense the more you think about it, but
it is bizarre.
It is bizarre.
A lighthouse on one of them, and the United States, assuming the islands are hers, pretends the lighthouse doesn't exist. It's not a huge problem, as the argument is mostly over tourists who want to see puffins and fishermen who want to catch lobsters, but let's hope the disagreement gets resolved before someone finds oil under that lighthouse. Even the non-disputed territory has a few notably weird spots, such as this tick of the border upward into Canada. Zoom in and it gets stranger, as the border isn't over solid land, but runs through a lake to cut off a bit of Canada before diving back down to the US. This spot is home to about 100 Americans and is a perfect example of how border irregularities are born. Back in 1783, when the victorious Americans were negotiating with the British, who controlled what would one day be Canada, they needed a map, and this map was the best available at the time. While the East Coast looks pretty good, the wester it goes, the sparser it gets. And a negotiation was the edge of what would one day be Minnesota and Manitoba, but unfortunately that area was hidden underneath an inset on the map, so the Americans and the British were bordering blind. Seriously. They guessed the border should start from the northwestern part of this lake and go in a horizontal line until it crossed the Mississippi. up somewhere. But somewhere turned out to be nowhere, as the mighty Mississippi stopped short of that
Wow.
line, which left the border vague until
Very
35
wrong.
years later, when a second round of negotiations established the aforementioned 49th parallel. But there was still a problem, as the lake mentioned earlier was both higher and less circular than first thought, putting its northwesterly point here, so the existing border had to jump up to meet it and then drop straight down to the 49th, awkwardly cutting off a bit of Canada before heading west to the remainder of the continent. And it turns out you can't just draw a straight-ish line for hundreds of miles without causing a few more problems. One of which was luckily spotted in advance, Vancouver Island, which the 49th would have sliced through, but both sides agreed that would be dumb, so the border swoops around the island. However, next door to Vancouver Island is Point Roberts, which went unnoticed, and thus today the border blithely cuts across. It's a nice little town home to over 1,000 Americans, but has only a primary school, so its older kids have to cross international borders 4 times a day to go to school in their own state. In a pleasing symmetry, the East Coast has the exact opposite situation, with a Canadian island whose only land route is a bridge from the United States. And these two aren't the only places where each country contains a bit of the other. There are several more, easily spotted in satellite photos by the no-touching zone. Regardless of if the land in question is just an uninhabited strip in the middle.
I can't get over it. It's mad, isn't it? It is mad.
No touching zone.
I tell you what, though, this is literally, we've only got 20 seconds left. A 4-minute video, I feel like so much information.
It is.
I've actually learned
and
so
also,
much.
like, I feel like it's one of those videos where the title actually is the video.
It is a video and it's entertaining as well. It's good.
Middle of a lake in the middle of nowhere, the border between these sister nations must remain clearly marked.
Wow, that is literally it. That was good. I enjoyed that.
It was good. It
I've
was
actually learned so
actually
much.
interesting.
Smash that one if you enjoy, guys. Smash that subscribe button. Like I say, a bit shorter than usual, so we'll give Patreon a shout out, because guess what? Nearly it is.
This is going out. Oh, I'm nearly 39.
Nearly 39 by the time this goes out. At the time of recording, about 38 and a couple days.
Yep.
30 weeks and a couple of days. The baby's due on the 29th of September.
So next week.
Which is as wacky as mentally than them borders.
Next week.
I know, literally next week, which is mental, which is super exciting though. Hopefully you guys are excited as well. We'll do an announcement video when the baby is here. But if you want to check out Patreon, we'd really appreciate that, because like I said, we have got a baby coming. That was fun. If there's any other border videos like this where we can just learn a bit more.
Maybe the Mexico one.
The Mexico one, is there more trees chopped down?
Is there borders for Mexico?
I can't believe that line's a thing. It makes so much sense, but I never thought about it
It's
until
just
now.
funny.
It literally is just funny. Smash that like button, guys. Smash that subscribe button, and what should they do?
Have a fantastic day.
And we'll see you legends in the next one. Peace.